Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel, and it's time for yet another top 25 best Xbox Game Pass games video. Now, this is something that I like to do about every 6 or so months, as games are constantly coming in and coming out of Xbox Game Pass. And really, there's a lot of great games within this service, so it's kind of hard to keep up and what you should start out with playing. So that's where these videos come in. I do like to help people discover what game they should play next. Now, with that said, I am going to make a small change here because I have started to notice with some of my previous videos that there were too many mainstays. And really the reason for this is because, well, Xbox has a lot of first-party studios now, so these games will forever be in Xbox Game Pass. So what I'm going to try to do with this video is to remove a couple of these really popular mainstays, such as Halo, Gears, Forza, Minecraft, Fallout, and Skyrim. All of these games are absolutely amazing games, and if I were to include them on this list, they would all probably be within the top 10. However, this does allow me to shine some light on some other games, that way you can discover them as well. Now, if you really do want to focus on first-party games, I do have a completely separate video for that, and I will leave that in the description below. Besides all that, do keep in mind that this video is only my opinion, and if I miss any of your favorite games, make sure to let me know in the comments below. But other than that, let's just go and jump right into the video. And to start this list off, I have The Forgotten City, which is a much overlooked game, and truthfully, it really shouldn't be. It's a unique blend of storytelling and atmospheric gameplay. It's not necessarily an action-packed game, and it more so focuses on its mysterious narrative. The premise revolves around a city that if one citizen commits a sin, the entire population will receive equal punishment. Nothing else is quite clear though, but you who can turn back time can slowly unravel the mystery by speaking with the many inhabitants. The Forgotten City is gripping, it's unforgettable, and a game that will truly surprise you at every turn. Next up here, I have Flight Simulator, which is nothing short of amazing. This is actually one of the highest rated games this generation, in fact. While yes, it's a little niche considering not everybody has dreams of aviation, but however, this is still a game I would recommend everybody to check out at least once. Not only is it an absolutely gorgeous game with its photorealistic graphics, but it's also jaw-dropping with its real-world locations. If you have an Xbox Series X and if you're looking for something to truly show off its power, then look no further than Flight Simulator. Now, for those that grew up with old-school JRPGs such as Final Fantasy VI, then you'll feel right at home with Octopath Traveler. It's clear where its inspiration came from, but with more modernized visuals dubbed HD 2D pixel art. It's a beautiful game, but it also plays phenomenally well with its turn-based combat, where you take advantage of enemy weaknesses. The thing that really separates Octopath Traveler, though, is that unlike other JRPGs, you have 8 unique stories as you travel the world and grow your party with 8 different travelers, hence the name Octopath Traveler. This sounds great on paper and everything, though some stories and characters are more interesting than others. And because they don't necessarily interact with each other all that much, it does leave something to be desired in terms of its overall story. Even still though, this is a great old school JRPG that has now kicked off HD 2D games. Now, if you are looking for good storytelling though, then Life is Strange True Colors might be a game to check out. Of course, this is coming from the popular adventure game series Life is Strange, so supernatural powers does play a major role here. But this time with a completely different cast of characters. This time you play as Alex Chen, who has a unique ability to sense emotions within others. This can bring her joy, sadness, or even anger as she unravels the mysteries of Haven Springs and her brother's death. From beginning to end, True Colors will take you on an emotional ride that you're going to want to play through. Now, here's another unique game that really stands out being A Plague Tale: Innocence. This game fits into that more modern cinematic action adventure mold, but it separates itself with an atmospheric world, its stealth-based gameplay, and then an emotional story about a brother and sister fighting all odds. It does take place in 1349, where the world has been infested by the plague and a swarm of rats, and I do mean that quite literally. Rats do play a major enemy in this game as the young kids scour the world to reach safety. That is the other part about this game that makes it stand out though. You don't play some super powerful character, but rather you play as vulnerable children. This is where the stealth-based gameplay comes in as you face off against the Inquisition. You will need to sneak and outwit your enemies. This may require combat, and there's also various puzzles along the way. Xbox and RPGs kind of go hand in hand this generation, as they have acquired big talent such as Obsidian Entertainment, and they have made yet another great RPG here, being The Outer Worlds. This is a witty first-person RPG that kind of plays like a mix of Fallout and Mass Effect, both of which are outstanding games. You get to build your own characters as you see fit, and they really let you go wild with this. If you want to be your everyday hero, you can absolutely do that. Or if you want to be a bumbling idiot that fumbles and bumbles their way through the galaxy, well, you can do that too, as you choose how the story plays out through its various dialogue options. The choice, it's completely yours. You'll also get to build a party with its colorful cast of characters, and you'll get to travel planet to planet, which is vibrant and filled with variety. Now, if you like fighting games, Game Pass has a surprising amount to choose from. This includes Mortal Kombat 11, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Injustice 2, and Killer Instinct. There's really not a right or wrong game to pick here, as they're really all good in their own way. But for me, I have to go with Killer Instinct. This is actually my personal favorite fighting game of all time. It's got a truly unique blend of characters with a wide variety of archetypes and playstyles. You can play as a Battletoad, a mummy, a vampire, a cybernetic dinosaur in a cheerleading outfit, an ice alien, and the list just kind of goes on and on. You can even play as Arbiter from Halo or Ram from Gears of War. Its cast of characters are crazy, and it fits perfectly with its fast and intense gameplay. That's only a part of what makes this game so special though, because it's not just about ridiculously long combos. There's also a big mind game with each fight, as you can break combos if you can read your opponent well enough. But, however, they can also counter-break you if they predict when you're going to try and break. And this isn't even getting into the different Instinct modes. There's a lot of strategy within Killer Instinct, and even if this game is a little bit older now, it's still one of the best fighting games that you can play today. Some of my all-time favorite games ever comes from the top-down Zelda series. Now, there's been a lot of games that's tried to replicate that formula to no avail, but then there's Death's Door. The two does have some similarities in how you traverse its almost Metroidvania world, its various puzzles, and its boss fights. It does this all very well, but it also takes its combat, in my opinion, a step further. It's fluid, it's strategic, and at times, it can be challenging. It also has a world that you're going to want to explore, though at times, it can be a little confusing as you don't actually have a map within the game. But that's really my only complaint when it comes to Death's Door. Besides that, I think you're looking at one of the better independent games that's released in recent years. When it was first announced that Eidos Montreal, the studio behind the popular Deus Ex games, was working on Guardians of the Galaxy, it sounded like an interesting combo. You have this highly talented studio working on a popular Marvel IP, and well, it ended up winning the Game Awards Best Narrative in 2021. And that right there is the reason that you're going to want to check this game out. It's got a great overall narrative with amusing and humorous banter from its beloved characters. The story really shines in this one, and it's also a good game to explore, and it has fun overall combat as well. It, however, is a more linear game though, but I don't necessarily view that as a bad thing personally. I don't believe every game necessarily needs to have an open world, and I actually really enjoy linear games. In fact, I actually think that it fits perfectly with a more narrative-driven focus like you see within Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you do like that approach, definitely check this game out. Now, here's a game that really took me by surprise, and it's actually one of my favorite RPGs that's released in recent years, being Bug Fables. Again, this is another one of those games that wears its heart on its sleeves. You can clearly tell where its inspiration comes from. It takes a page right out of Paper Mario's book, no pun intended. The thing about this game, though, is that it's the Paper Mario 3 that fans have been asking for well over a decade. It's a true turn-based RPG with a charming world, characters, and story. That's actually the part that surprised me, though, because I came away more than just a little satisfied with its story, but then it also offers a real challenge if you set its difficulty to hard. So all in all, it's got good combat with interactive elements, the world is fun to explore and has some puzzles and platforming, and it has an enjoyable story as well. So again, Bug Fables isn't just a game that was simply inspired by a classic, but rather, I think it's a game that Nintendo should now be inspired by. Next up here, I have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which sits among the very best Star Wars games ever made. This one was developed by Respawn Entertainment, the same studio behind games such as Titanfall and Apex Legends. So, but this really shouldn't come as a major surprise. This is a cinematic action-adventure game, though, that allows you to focus on your Jedi powers. It actually has a pretty in-depth combat system that can offer some challenge, but then it also has that fluid movement that you've come to know from Respawn games. Now, I'm not necessarily the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, but you really don't have to be when it comes to Jedi Fallen Order. It's just simply a good game that's easy to recognize. However, if you are a big fan of Star Wars, another easy recommendation here would be Squadrons, which focuses on aerial combat. Now, if you're looking for more of a competitive multiplayer game, then look no further than Rainbow Six Siege. There's really not another game out there that plays quite like Siege in its tactical team-based combat. You choose from a wide variety of operators, each of which has their own unique abilities, weapons, and gadgets. You then either infiltrate or defend an objective by taking advantage of the semi-destructible environment. That's one of the things that's always really impressed me about this game, though. Of course, team play is very important when it comes to Siege, but the sound effects in this game are outstanding, to say the least, as you listen to the different footsteps and voices through walls and floors to pinpoint your enemy's exact location. Nonetheless, though, Siege to me is unique and really is among the best competitive multiplayer games out right now. Up next here is another one of my personal favorites, being Hellblade. I absolutely love when games and stories makes you kind of think out of the box. Even when it comes to its end, it still has your mind in a fit trying to piece everything together, and I think that Hellblade does that brilliantly so. In many ways, I would say that Hellblade is a psychological horror hidden inside an action-adventure game as you dive into a world of madness, a tormented mind. All the voices in your head, they're just kind of echoing, giving you a sense of what is going on through the mind of our protagonist, Senua. Her psychosis and mental illness shines through as she battles through a Norse mythology land. And by the way, the audio in this game is masterful, and I could say the same for its story and world as well. Now, in terms of its hack and slash combat, it gets the job done. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's overly complex or anything, but when all is said and done, I would say that Hellblade is nothing short of masterful. Years ago, as many of you all probably will remember, Tunic was announced as an Xbox console exclusive and immediately drew a lot of attention for its Zelda-like gameplay and its minimalistic but beautiful art style. Well, now here we are in 2022 and Tunic is finally out, but did it meet those lofty expectations that it originally set all those years ago? Well, actually, it didn't just meet those expectations, but rather it exceeded them with flying colors. Tunic is not just a Zelda-like, but surprisingly, it's also a Souls-like. This was a huge surprise, but despite its cute visual art style, Tunic plays a lot like From Software games with its challenging combat and the way you traverse location to location with its quote-unquote bonfires. It doesn't hold your hand as you solve its various puzzles and travel its Metroidvania-like world, but it does allow players to solve its many secrets, and Tunic right now, in my opinion, is actually one of the better games that has released in 2022 so far. Do not sleep on this game. In another huge surprise, Dragon Quest has finally made its way over to Xbox with not just one game, but two great games, being Dragon Quest XI and then Dragon Quest Builders 2. Now, both of these games are quite a bit different, but both are very well worth playing. Dragon Quest XI is your more traditional turn-based JRPG that really feels like it came straight out of the 90s with more modern visuals, and I say that in the best possible way. To many, that was the golden era of JRPGs. With Dragon Quest XI, though, it offers a grand journey where you build a party of lovable misfits and wrap it all together within an emotional story. I cannot emphasize this enough, but this is a must-play game for fans of the genre. Now, as for Builders 2, this actually plays a little bit more like something like Minecraft, though personally, I actually like it more. You don't just mindlessly build things, but instead you are given different tasks to build things that then advances the story. Surprisingly, it also does have a pretty good story, and it's a legitimate action RPG as well. No, it's not necessarily overly complex, but enjoyable nonetheless. Now, I've always really liked stealth-based games, whether that's something like Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell, but now we have a new king on the block, being Hitman. The world of assassination has made its way over to Xbox Game Pass with the Hitman trilogy, which includes Hitman 1, 2, and 3. All three of these games are high-quality experiences as you're basically given an assassination target and then put onto a playground where you choose how you want to go about your business. The amount of choice and strategic planning that is given to players within Hitman is truly impressive, and this spans across the entire trilogy. Here I do have yet another trilogy, this time being the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which in my opinion is one of the greatest trilogies to ever grace games. At the very least, Mass Effect is a premium sci-fi experience as you travel the galaxy with some of the most memorable characters within games. These are third-person shooter RPGs with their mechanics getting better with each individual installment. You do choose a lot of how the story plays out with its various dialogue options, and while it might stumble a bit in Mass Effect 3, the overall journey is an unforgettable experience. There are some games out there that for whatever reason just doesn't get the attention that they deserve, and Prey is one of those games. Now, let's fix that though, because Prey is an amazing sci-fi first-person shooter RPG. I mean, if you like games like System Shock, this one becomes an absolute no-brainer. In Prey, you wake up on Talos, a ship that's been overrun by an alien threat, including the well-designed mimic that quite literally can mimic objects within the environment. This little inclusion always keeps you on your toes, as you never quite know when a threat might arise, but with its smart overall game design that allows you, the player, to navigate its world in a number of different ways, Prey is an easy recommend. Sega might be most well known for Sonic, but Yakuza might secretly be their premier modern games. These games stand out for their authentic Japanese environments, over-the-top beat-em-up combat, but most notably, their thrilling stories. I really cannot emphasize that part enough. I do view the Yakuza franchise as some of the better story-driven games on the market right now. They are a wild and gripping ride with twists and turns around every corner, and luckily, a large portion of the Yakuza franchise is available in Game Pass, including 3, 4, 5, 6, and Like a Dragon, which actually has you playing as a completely new protagonist, and instead of having beat-em-up gameplay, Like a Dragon actually plays more similar to a turn-based JRPG. I will say that if you're new to the series, I would recommend starting off with Yakuza 0, which is no longer available in Game Pass, unfortunately, but considering Like a Dragon has you playing as a different cast of characters, even if there are parts that intertwine with the rest of the series, it's still a game that you can jump into if you haven't played the others. Doom 2016 was already a good first-person shooter, but Doom Eternal took things to the next level, and it is a masterclass of a first-person shooter. It's not just your typical first-person shooter either, though. This is a game that combines fast and fluid platforming with powerful and precise shooting and increasingly intense gameplay. What's so amazing about it, though, is it's not just mindless shooting. There's a real strategy to it as you take on an onslaught of demons. id Software did it, though. They made a first-person shooter here that is the perfect blend of power, speed, and precision. Now, I'm not necessarily typically into roguelike games where if you die, you restart from the beginning, but here in recent years, that's been changing. There's been some really good roguelites in the last couple of years, but none better than Hades. Hades not only manages to have addicting gameplay that has you thinking just one more run and I'll make it to the end, but it somehow manages to make death feel almost rewarding. Now, I know that sounds counteractive and everything, but it's absolutely true. The reason for that is because it also has a really well-told story, and every time you die, you get to talk with the characters within its universe one more time. Of course, the combat is also superb with plenty of options as you fight your way out of the underworld to reach Mount Olympus. Now, if you're looking for a spooky game, then Resident Evil 7 is the way to go without a doubt. Resident Evil is a staple to the horror genre for good reason, though there for a while it seemed like the franchise was turning more into an action series, or at least until Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 was a return to form of sorts, going back to its roots with a legitimate scary but fascinating setting, though it does have one big twist. Unlike previous entries, which were set in third person, Resident Evil 7 instead is set in first person. However, it does feel like a perfect fit here, and some even debate it's more immersive this way. It's definitely hard to argue while you're exploring its spooky world. Seriously, that basement though, it got to me. I also think that it has an intriguing story as the protagonist searches for his lost wife in a beyond creepy mansion. I think most games, while playing cooperatively with a good friend, can turn out to be a lot of fun. But with It Takes Two, it is heads and shoulders beyond your typical cooperative game. No, this is the cooperative game, and arguably the best of its kind ever made. No, I'm not exaggerating here either. It Takes Two is one of the most creative games that I have ever played, and with each passing level, it somehow surprises you all over again with new gameplay mechanics or just its phenomenal level design. While one level might be your typical 3D platformer, the next might play like a dungeon crawler or have you teaming up to fly a piece together airplane as you run away from killer squirrels. As I said, it's never short on surprises. It does also have a rather enjoyable story that follows a troubled married couple who are turned to dolls and are looking to become human once again. In order to do this, though, they have to take a little sadistic marriage counseling, if you will. And here at the number 2 spot, I actually have 2 different games because I do believe they're equally as good, just in different ways. That would be Ori and the Will of the Wisps and then Hollow Knight. Both of these are Metroidvania games, though they do focus on different gameplay mechanics. Hollow Knight is more of the Dark Souls of the Metroidvania genre, focusing on its challenging combat. It's got a grim, grotesque, and dark world, and you still absolutely want to explore it. Meanwhile, Ori is the exact opposite. It's got a beautiful and vibrant world, and instead, it focuses more on its challenging platforming. In fact, its platforming is so good that I think it's better than most traditional 2D platformers, especially when you consider Ori's platforming boss sequences. They will truly test your skills, but in both cases, Ori and Hollow Knight are among the very best Metroidvania games to date. And at the number 1 spot, I have none other than Psychonauts 2. This is another insanely creative game that blends 3D platforming with a flat-out amazing story. You don't usually think of stories when talking about 3D platformers, but Psychonauts breaks that mold by far. You play as Rasputin, which is training to become a psychonaut, a member of an espionage psychic organization, and being both a psychic and an acrobat, Raz has various abilities at his disposal, giving him a good mix of 3D platforming with fun combat as well. The gameplay alone is at the top of its class in terms of collectathon 3D platformers, but the world, story, and its characters is really where it separates itself. It's a humorous game with its peculiar and zany characters, but it also tackles mental illnesses in a very smart way. See, one of the key aspects of being a psychonaut is infiltrating the minds of others, and that's where you can learn more about that person's past and their innermost demons. So not only is each world, like I said, insanely creative, but also it tells a beautiful story. Double Fine made a true masterpiece here, and if there is one game that you should play on Game Pass, this is the one here. Also, go ahead and play the first game as well, which still plays fantastically well all these years later and is also available on Game Pass. You absolutely will not regret it. For those that have already played these games, though, let's just kind of cross our fingers and hope for a Psychonauts 3. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.